Hi everyone, this is Jim. This is going to be the last video in my series of videos about Sam Sevian's performance at the GM Invitational in St. Louis. I read the other day that at the December 4th FIDE meeting in Sochi, they approved Sam Sevian's application for Grandmaster contingent on his achieving a rating of 2,500 or more, which he actually achieved in this tournament. So he's already officially a Grandmaster, so I don't have to call him Grandmaster-elect or anything like that. I can just call him Grandmaster Sevian. So for this game, I wanted to look at his win in round 6. There was a couple games I'm skipping over. In round 4, he had a game against Andrei Gorovets, and he had the white pieces. Andrei played a kind of a Taimanov Sicilian, and it was a very back-and-forth game. Sam was actually worse for quite a bit of it, but with fighting spirit, he managed to get back into the game and win it at the end. And then an interesting game in round 6 against Grandmaster Ben Feingold, who's a Grandmaster in residence at the St. Louis Chess Club. Has some videos out if you want to check them out on the St. Louis Chess Club site. So Ben Feingold, again with the black pieces, played a classical Sicilian. And it's very interesting. And on move 13, I think it was, Sam sacrificed a knight. And actually, it was in a theoretically known position, but I don't know if the knight sacrifice was known or not. It's not in my database, at least. So it could be a novelty, it could have been home preparation, it could have been inspiration over the board, but whatever it was, it seems like it's not quite sound according to my chess engine, but on the other hand, it seems like White got a lot of play for it. And Ben Feingold defended well for a while, but somehow didn't find the best way to defend in the end, and Sam managed to win. But the game I wanted to look at is this one. This is from round 8. And Sam has the white pieces. His opponent is Ashwin Jayaram, an international master from India, 22 years old, who's going to school at Webster University in St. Louis and playing in the tournament here with the international master with a rating of 2442. So perhaps someone hoping for a GM norm. So Sam kicked off with e4, which he did throughout this tournament. He started all his white games with e4. And Ashwin played e5. And so we get a Ruy Lopez, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. All the standard moves, let's see, up to this point, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, and b5. So early b5, pushing the bishop back to b3, and then bishop to c5. So this is a slightly more modern way to play the Ruy Lopez, the black side of it. Instead of putting the bishop on e7, the bishop comes out to c5 here, putting some pressure on the king side. It's a good active post. You always have to be wary of this center fork tactic. So right now, in fact, White can take the pawn takes, and pawn here, hitting the bishop. It just turns out to not get much for White. So generally, White players choose another move at this point. The top choices are c3 and a4. So c3, the idea to build a big center, and a4, the move that Sam chose, just directly undermining this pawn structure here on the queen side. So rook b8 was played, and now there's this exchange. And all these moves have been played many times, and now Sam goes for this center fork trick. And it's a little bit better in this circumstance. So after pawn to d4, bishop takes, queen takes, d6 is played here. Let's see, is it possible? You always worry about trapping the bishop with a move like c5 and then c4. So let's first of all see if c5 is possible here. Oh, c5 is not possible because the queen can just take it. Okay, so d6 threatens this idea of c5 and c4, but White strikes first with the move f4. And now the knight needs to move. So the knight drops back to c6, blocking the c-pawn, so now this is no longer a threat. The queen goes to c3. Yeah, it was attacking the queen too. And knight to e7. So the knight has rerouted. And now a very interesting move from Sam. He plays rook a7. This has been played before, so this is still in the database. And it's not the most popular move at this point. It's a little bit risky, it seems, throwing the rook forward like this. What's the most common move here is e5. Yeah, so that's a way to play. Are there other ideas? Yeah, bishop e3 is possible according to the chess engine. So just developing a piece might make sense. I mean, that's what I would want to do, is play bishop e3 and knight d2 and just get my pieces out and play the game. But rook a7, so kind of a provocative move. But, well, you've got a rook on the 7th rank. Black plays c5 here. And now we have to worry about the bishop being trapped. But there's time to counterattack with e5. So what would happen if c4 was played here, just out of curiosity? c4. This was not played. E takes f6. Oh, the problem is that the pawn keeps taking. It's hitting the queen, and so actually white gets 2 pieces for black's 1. So this is e5 is a bigger threat than c4. So black has to play some knight move. Knight f went to d5. Now there's an exchange, and queen to f3. And all this has been played before. This is somewhat forcing, and black here has the interesting move queen b6. So leaving this knight under attack, but counterattacking the rook. And the move that Sam played here has also been played before. This is in the database. Rook takes f7. So this is an exchange sacrifice. Black is going to get the rook, and white is going to get the knight. So and then black also, white also gets a pawn as well as the knight. So it's a decent exchange sacrifice. I don't know how much more of this has been played before, because this is where my database ends. There's still 2 games that have gone at least this far. Anyway, black continues with the pawn push. Doesn't have to take back immediately because this is check. King goes to h1, and now the king grabs the rook on f7, and white grabs the knight. So bishop to e6 is a logical move, chasing the queen back and dealing with the check. Queen drops back to d1, and bishop to f5, maybe with the idea of slowing down this f-pawn push. And so here's a moment where we can take stock of account. White is still a pawn up, and he's got a knight for a rook. And notice the bishops are of opposite color, which may come into play at some point. So knight to c3, finally getting around to developing the rest of his pieces. Rook to f8, rook h to f8. Trying to get his pieces in the game, and the knight hops forward to d5, gaining a tempo on the queen. The queen drops back to d8, and e6 check. So this is pretty interesting. Since the exchange sack, Sam has been playing very actively, getting his pieces out, and not afraid to go ahead and sacrifice another pawn. So at this point, it's a pure exchange sacrifice. Before, he had a pawn for the exchange, but he's giving that up. Now there are 2 ways to take the pawn. And king takes e6 was played in the game, and that is approved by the chess engine as the best way to defend. So let's take a look first at the other move. If bishop takes e6 had been played, white follows up with f5, hitting the bishop. And now the engine is recommending actually giving the exchange back right away. Bishop takes, rook takes, and with a significant edge to white. But it says actually this is the best black can do. So what's going on here? I guess the problem is that black's king is so exposed. Even back on g8, there's still these threats of knight coming in here to e7. If we look at the material, let's see, it's a rook against, it's 2 pieces against a rook at this point. So so that's giving up a whole piece and leaving white with 2 pieces against a rook. So this is good for white. So the more natural move, just retreating the bishop to d7, say. And then the idea is to push the f-pawn forward, try and open up lines against the king. Now to keep lines closed, probably g6 is the best way to play this. And then knight to e7. So black gets white gets this tremendous knight here, and an advanced pawn in a somewhat precarious king position. Probably let's see, it's recommending queen c7 or bishop to e6 as moves, probably wanting to control this square. But white, even though down in material, let's see, the pawns are the same, but white is just down the exchange here, knight for a rook. The computer rates this as good for white, in fact, a winning advantage. So I guess there's an eventual attack. It's a little bit tricky to see exactly how white's going to break through. One idea might be to put the queen here and come in on the dark squares. There's some dark squared weaknesses around the king. But all in all, there's enough threats here to more than make up for the loss of the exchange here. So that's good for white. So black plays the best defense here by taking with the king. Seems a bit precarious. The king is exposed there. Sam plays the check, and the king goes back to f7. But all this is best play according to the chess engine. So now white still gets this knight on e7, but this pawn has been held back by the bishop. So I guess that's the big difference in these two scenarios. And now Ashwin plays an interesting move here. He takes the knight. What's the recommended move? The recommended move here is actually bishop e6, which allows white to get his material back with knight to c6 here, forking the queen and the rook and winning the exchange back. And so after that, it's a position which is slightly favorable to white with more or less even material. Ashwin decides to keep material imbalance, just trying to change it up a little bit by playing queen takes e7. And I think with the idea of rook takes e7, the immediate rook takes e7, and king takes, and you get this situation where black has two rooks against a queen and the pawns are even. And if black has enough time to coordinate his forces, this may turn out okay for black. The two rooks can be stronger than the queen in some circumstances, although right here the computer still gives the edge to white in this position. But Sam played a little differently. Instead of retaking immediately, he throws in some checks. He goes with queen h5 check, which is actually stronger than taking immediately. Forces black to displace his forces somewhat. He can't block with the pawn because the h-pawn would fall, so he blocks with the bishop. And now the queen can come over here to d5 and check. And now the king is no longer able to run away to g8. Of course, the queen can't block because the rook is here, so the king goes here. And now Sam takes the queen. At some point, he's going to have to capture that to get his material back. And we have the same situation I was talking about where black has the two rooks and white has the queen, and the pawns are even. But the queen is much better posted now. The queen is right here on a good central square, and the king is kept away from going to safety. So Sam continues with g4, advancing the pawns, and not afraid of this check just yet. That would be a nasty fork if the bishop were ever supported there, but for now the queen is covering this diagonal. So black plays bishop takes c2. And this is actually the game-losing move. So if we back up here, the engine is recommending king to d7 or bishop to f7 as ways to stay in the game. But it's tempting. This pawn is just sitting here asking to be taken. So Ashwin grabbed that pawn. And now there's one very nice move that white plays here. Why don't you take a minute and see if you can find it. There's just one move that's clearly superior to all the other moves. Okay, if you want some time to think about it, pause the video. I'm going to give the answer away. The move is f5. Now f5 is very interesting. It opens up the diagonal for this bishop. So now the bishop has this square and this square available to it, both of which were not available before. And on top of that, it also blocks this bishop's path back to the defense of the king. So there's no way the bishop can get back to the g6 square where it came from. It's now a bit stuck out of play over here. So a dual-purpose move, f5, very nice move. And now white is just winning. Black tries king d7, running away from the check, and white comes in here with bishop f4, hitting the pawn, threatening to take immediately, and now rook b6, defending the d6 pawn. But this just loses. And in fact, there was no defense here. Everything loses at this point. The combination of the bishop being out of play and the rooks being somewhat uncoordinated with the king between the rooks. They don't communicate so easily, and this threat on the d pawn forces the rooks out of communication with each other, and so we're just left in a very awkward situation. Sam plays the move queen to e6 check, and it's basically all over here. Where can the king go to? If he goes to c7, for example, we have queen to e7 check, winning the rook. If the king goes to c6, then we have the move queen takes d6 check, because it gives up, I'll just show this one, gives up the defense of the e-pawn. So, and that also wins the rook. So black played the move king to d8. But after the move bishop to g5 check, black resigned. So there's only one move for the king. It goes to c7, and then queen to e7 check once again will pick up the rook, if nothing better. So looking pretty good for white. Black resigned. It's basically a hopeless position. So nice game. Congratulations, Sam. I am going to do one more Sam Sevian game, but it's not going to be from this tournament. So that's stay tuned for that. And if you have any comments on this game, leave them in the section below. I will see you again soon. Bye.